I'm a true millennial in this way. I'm not gonna wait to live a life that feels meaningful.
Hello, welcome to Money Honestly, stories about all the ways money can shape a person, for better and for worse. My name is Lionel Foster. Tiffany Ferguson is fearless. On a regular basis, she voluntarily does two things that can be tough. First, she has intentional, personally revealing conversations about money. And second, she does this with multiple members of her extended family. Money, family, feelings. Individually, each of these things keeps therapists in business. She juggles them all at the same time, but don't run away, because in this episode, Tiffany makes a compelling case for why we all should consider having these conversations, and she teaches us how to do it. I feel a little bit more capable after talking to her just once, and you will too. Tiffany, welcome to Money Honestly. How are you?
I'm good, Lionel. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so excited to be here. And wow, didn't know how much I wanted to talk about money, but here I am, excited.
You're exactly the kind of person I've been itching to talk to, so let's get into it. What is your money origin story?
So my money origin story probably starts in my with my family story. Obviously, I would describe myself as the daughter of a single mom. She was widowed in 1989. My father was a victim of gun violence in Washington, D.C., and I was the youngest of five. I was barely 2 years old. And so our life before this tragedy that was my father's death was on a very different trajectory. My mother and father were entrepreneurs. They were multi-level marketing enthusiasts. They got into Amway in the 80s. My father was also an entrepreneur. He was highly educated, had multiple degrees from Howard University, um, Omega Psi Phi Alpha chapter. He would want me to say if he was here.
So you had
Um,
this huge presence of a father. I know a little bit about your mother. She seems equally wonderful and formidable. You all lose him. How do you move forward?
so my mother had, they were just starting a computer store. This is in the 80s on K Street. Truly, people ahead of their time. My father had car dealerships. Him and some friends were renting out luxury cars,
This is
and they
K
had,
Street in Washington, D.C.
yep, K Street,
Yep.
Washington D.C. And they had bought a house just a few years earlier on what's called the Gold Coast in Northwest DC, very close to the
Hmm.
Carter Barron, to Rock Creek Park. So I'm naming all this stuff because part of our financial story is the security that was having an asset like a house, having business insurance on the business, having life insurance. My mother also sold life insurance. So, all of these things I came to learn later were the things that gave my mother the sort of jump start she needed to survive that loss. And so,
Hmm.
sold the house, got the business insurance, paid off a bunch of lawyers, and then she had to start her life with these five kids alone. So my childhood is really marked by not having a lot.
Hmm.
I didn't feel like we were poor because we weren't poor. My mother had the safety net to fall back on. She was getting widow's benefits. It was a check for each child up until we aged out of the system, 18, I think. She also continued on being an entrepreneur. So she worked odd jobs. She sold insurance. She worked odd hours. And you ask her today, she did that so she can maintain her flexibility and autonomy because that's really core to an entrepreneur's identity, right? They're not people who want to work a 9 to 5 and be held down by somebody else's schedule. And so because of that, we just didn't have a lot and we moved a
Hmm.
lot. And I was
Yeah.
so keenly aware of how little discretionary income we had from very young that I would do things like not ask my mother for lunch money, right? Or like like not if it was a field trip or something, I would be like, "Mom, we have this
How
field
young,
trip. It's
how
going to
old
be
were you
$8."
when you began to have this awareness?
Third, second, third grade, fourth
Okay.
grade for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I would cobble together lunch money from other people's change.
You're asking some of your peers for lunch money. I remember how self-conscious I was around that time in my life and still am to a certain extent. And I'm just picturing you having to ask for that kind of support from your peers. Was that hard? Was it embarrassing at all?
No,
Great.
I didn't have to. I knew that whatever I asked my mother for, she would try to give it to me.
Okay.
I knew that if I asked her for $20 for a day trip or a field trip, she would give it to me. I was also keenly aware that there were trade offs. It wasn't because she told me or complained. I asked her a lot of questions. I would say, "Mom, like you go to work, how much does the house cost? How much does it?" I wanted to know. I spent a lot more time with her than my siblings at that time because she would take me along to some of her insurance. She would pitch people insurance in their home. So I was just kind of around her a little more than they were by that age because they were a little bit older and just kind of teens wanting to do their own thing. But I would ask her, like, how much do you make? How much do you have left over? How much does the water cost? How much does it? And she would tell me, like, matter of factly.
Okay.
And so I just knew we didn't have much food. Like I knew we just didn't have a lot, and I
Well,
didn't.
thinking back on how candid she was with you when you were asking these questions, does her candor and transparency seem unusual, like compared to what you know about other parent-child interactions?
Definitely unusual.
Yeah.
Um, I think the difference for me, the reason I didn't feel any embarrassment was one, I knew I didn't have to. To like, maybe you can say this subliminal entrepreneurial mindset. It was just like I knew these people had. I knew these kids had stuff. They didn't care about it. They didn't really understand where money came from. They didn't understand how hard their parents worked for it. Kids had Jordans, they had Parasuco jeans. In middle school, I don't know if folks come from a place where they had the kids in middle school wearing $80, $90 jeans.
Yeah.
I didn't want any of that stuff. I didn't want it because it didn't feel meaningful. And so I will say what was very clear to me at a very young age was I want things that feel meaningful. And for me, what felt meaningful was time with family.
You were in middle school looking around at your peers and going, I remember almost exactly what you said. These kids don't understand where money comes from.
Yeah.
Was that alienating at all?
I wouldn't say it was alienating. No, like I didn't hold any insecurity around this stuff. I don't know how to explain that. If you knew my mother, like you would understand. She's confident. She's just like very devout Christian. She has a really positive attitude. She was reading all these books, Think and Grow Rich, Power of Positive Thinking, 48 Laws of Power, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. This is the kind of stuff she read. And when we got in trouble, she would make us read these things. I don't remember and write a book report. That was, we would have to do stuff like that. Um, and so her thing is sort of like perception is reality. She doesn't say it like that, but she's not going to be down very long. She's not a negative person, and she's been through a lot. And so I I give credit to her in terms of like the level of resilience and the level of my ability to kind of take a step back and observe and see like what what matters here. What
So
is really important here?
you grow up in a family led by your mom that has what sounds to me like a pretty remarkable orientation, frankness, openness, aspiration around money. It's just, hey, this is where we are, this is what we want, and you can talk honestly about both things. How does, if at all, how does any of that show up in your family dynamic today?
So I would say that for me, and I'll speak to my siblings in a moment, but part of the ways that my childhood influenced the way I see money today has a lot to do with my siblings and some of this stuff with my mom. And so all my siblings, I'm the youngest of five. Um, they all had kids by the time they were 21. Some a little bit, they started a little bit older, 17, 18. That felt very normal to me. And then I got to like 17, 18, and I was like, what in the world? This is young. I don't want no kids. And so a lot of my worldview was framed by not that kids aren't wonderful, because they are. They are truly gifts. They are gifts that are bestowed upon people. But I saw people live a life of sacrifice
Yeah.
and having to put themselves second, third, and kind of hustle. And I didn't want that for myself. And so a lot of my life, I'm in my late 30s now, but all of my 20s were about me sort of maximizing on meaningful experiences that I want, when I want, how I want.
Hmm.
Because I saw a bunch of women, including my aunts and my grandmother, just giving, sacrificing. And I'm not suggesting sacrifice is all bad. There's a lot of there's a lot you get when you give to folks, or you put other people's needs, or not that you put them first, but you take them into deep consideration. I didn't
Hmm.
want that. I was like, I'm leaving. I'm going to New York because I want to be a dancer. I discovered international travel in college. I was like, I want more of this. I want to travel. Um, I knew I wanted to pursue higher education. I was like, I'll go wherever I need to go for that. I'll move out of this country. Like, it was, my whole life was about building the financial stability that I didn't have in childhood. Because there were other things. I mentioned we didn't have food. Sometimes our lights would be off. Like, I was keenly aware that, like, we were kind of on the line.
Yeah.
We never got like put out of anywhere, but I just knew that you couldn't count your chickens before they hatched. I had this story of like fifth grade. There were a couple kids who would sell candy in school to make a few dollars, and I was like, "Mom, I
Hmm.
want to sell candy." She's like, "What's your plan?" I was like, "What you mean?" She's like, What's your upfront cost? How you gonna? What store are you gonna get it from? How much you gonna charge? What's your revenue? What's your profit? Do you know the difference? I was like, "Mom, no." She's like, "Okay, listen, I'll give you your upfront capital, and then I'm gonna get you a journal. I'm gonna invest in your business, but you got to make sure it's profitable." And so she would take me to like Target.
Hmm.
We would buy these bags of candy. I would come home. I had a composition book. I would count the pieces. I would decide how much I wanted to charge. I would do my little multiplication and be like, okay, so I got 20 pieces, 5 cents each. That's going to be X amount. And I'm like, I'm probably going to eat like 8 because I love candy. So, and then like, I got to subtract my,
You
my,
got your
my
shrinkage.
costs. So it's like, so I was keeping a composition book to sell candy. I don't think I did that. I probably did that for like a few months, 5 months, 6 months, maybe a year. But I tell you to this day, I have it somewhere in this area. I have a green composition book that I've kept for several years. That is
Mm.
where I did all my finances by hand every time I got paid for many, many years.
Wow. Do you have any recollection of what the profit margin was from that candy business?
Oh, Lionel, I won't get you lying. I didn't get rich, but I did get smart. I got rich in spirit. But I
Nice.
had a few extra dollars that then I could decide when I went to 7-Eleven after church whether I
Right.
was going to buy the Doritos and the Slurpee or just the Slurpee. So that sort of like practice with money that stayed with me.
Seem very skilled and astute at thinking and feeling your way through money, prioritizing. Those calculations, do they ever feel like a burden?
No.
No. Okay.
And I'll tell you why. Um, because I have like built into my psyche is I'm not going to be one of those people that works all hard and then waits. I'm a true millennial in this way. I'm not going to wait to live a life that feels meaningful. And so I typically index towards if I want it and it's not in my budget to have it, I need to make a plan to have it. And you can make a plan. Like to me, that like my whole life, like if you could sum my life up, it's plan. I wish I could give you acronym. It's plan. It's like
Hmm.
I want to do a 3 month, gallivanting situation through Southern Africa. Okay, what's my plan? It's not, I can't. It's not, that's not possible. It's not, and that my mother, anything I would say, I'd be like, I want to be an astronaut. Okay, okay, baby, what's your plan? I want to be an Air Force pilot. I want to be a robotics engineer. I want to be a dancer. Okay, what's your plan? Like it didn't matter what it was. It didn't matter how far away or impossible. It's always about having a plan. So for me, the calculations are not. It's not an exercise in constraining myself. It's actually an exercise probably in liberation.
Yeah, I'm not gonna wait to live a life that feels meaningful. That's a big statement.
And money
Where's yeah.
money doesn't make life meaningful. It's a means to achieving the things that feel meaningful to you.
So goal setting and problem solving. So I see you doing this in your personal life. What do you do for a living?
Goal setting and problem solving. Surprise, surprise. So now, the last 5 years, I pivoted. I used to do program work for nonprofits, and what that tends to look like is some people who are good natured and social impact oriented are like, we want to run some program. We want to run some different kind of program that helps people have access to higher quality jobs, or we want to support businesses to provide better quality jobs for their frontline workers, or we really want to support uh, entrepreneurs who have ideas that could build powerful workers. These are the kinds of things I've worked on. And I was there when they were ready to do that new program. And what
Hmm.
happens when you do a new program? You got to figure out what your goal is. You got to figure out why, your vision. You got to figure out how you're going to execute that program over time. You're going to figure out the resources and inputs to launch that program, run it, sustain it. And then you got to make sure you have the right people at the table at every phase of this work. And so all the work I used to do, it's funny because it sounds very consistent with what I've been
Yes, it
describing with
does.
my life. I
Yes, it
never
does.
really threaded that needle. Thank you,
See,
Lionel.
you know what? This podcast, Money Honestly, is a public service. People come on here. I ask them questions that they might not have thought about, but they start making. You see, I didn't even have to put that together for you.
Wow.
You did it
Revelation.
yourself.
Truly. Revelation right now, today, on this day. That my personal life looks a lot like my professional life.
Yeah.
Um, But I pivoted from that work and decided I wanted to go internal. So instead of focusing on like really cool things that can improve places, community policy, particularly around how people access money, economic opportunity, and work, the means through which people access money, I decided crazily to focus on internal operations of those types
Hmm.
of organizations, which is to say, I saw a lot of leaders struggle to put the same kind of energy that they put externally, internally. And when you work in places that don't run well, as I'm sure people listening may have experienced a time or two, it impacts you as a human because you spend so much time at work. So I pivoted to internal operations, became the head of people. Um, it was sort of a COO people job and ended
Hmm.
up indexing way towards the people side. I had never imagined myself as HR. That's what I became in that job. Um, our staff had organized a union, so I bargained a union contract. That was fascinating to sort of be on that management side of it. And then I transitioned after putting in 3 years of being the internal sort of head of people into a consultant job that consults on HR, organizational development, and people operations. So, what I do is a lot of what I did internally in
Hmm.
house. Now I just work with folks who sit in that seat, who are working in organizations at moments of great transition.
So articulating values, articulating and surfacing values, setting
Mhm.
goals, problem solving, planning. That's just what you do. It seems to show up in every phase of your life. You told me a bit about a regular, I think it's a monthly financial planning conversation you have within your family. Please tell us about that.
So I had these two interesting experiences with family collaboration.
Hmm.
One on my father's side, one on my mother's side. So on my father's side, we have this land. The story is there was a white man, probably a slave owner, who deeded some land down to a distant ancestor of mine and his brother. That was
And
in the
just to be clear,
1800s.
you and I are both African American. Please keep going.
Yes, yes. Um, and that land is still in my family. It's hundreds of acres in Virginia, Southern Virginia. And for all of this time, it's kind of been managed informally by a person who kind of self appoints themselves to steward the land. My uncle, who's my father's brother, decided that he wanted to get the family together so that he could eventually transition the stewardship of this from him to us because he's getting older. And part of the story he told us when we first started getting together is a long time ago, a generation or two or three ago, they decided that they wanted to make this land productive for a generation.
Hmm.
And what they did was they planted a lolly pine, which is also known as a money tree. It's a type of tree that grows very fast and is very lucrative for lumber. So every 20 to 30 years, they make cuts on this land and we sell it. We're not getting rich, okay? But it is making enough money to pay the taxes and pay people a couple $100. It depends on how many times your plots have been divided up. So among my
Hmm.
siblings, there are three of us who were the children of my father. So all of this is backstory to say the land has been deeded down. A lot of people have deeds. In order to make any decision on this land, you have to get all these people's signatures. And my uncle is like, the one thing we can do that is generationally responsible, similar to what was done before us, is to consolidate our interest in the land into a trust, create a body of people, ownership body, some kind of corporation. So we can now be sort of responsible stewards in a new way. And maybe even think about leasing the land, being more proactive, having a land management plan, all this other stuff. So we
Hmm.
started getting on the phone every one Sunday a month. This is a few years ago. People, cousins I've never met, and just like having conversation about what we wanted to do with the land and so on and so forth. And the culminating moment of that was deciding we wanted to put it into a trust, set up a corporation. Everybody had to sign the paperwork. We weren't able to get everybody to sign the paperwork.
Ah.
So that exercise of sort of getting the family together, having structured conversations, having an agenda. We invited guests a couple times. We invited a couple lawyers. Invited a couple of folks who could talk about like what a trust was versus a S corp versus a this, and have sort of collaborative, consensus driven conversations around what we wanted to do. That I think sparked some inspiration for my sister Crystal, who was like, eventually we should do this on our mom's side for our siblings.
Mm.
And so that's one experience. Very interesting, very much about land, very much trying to corral and herd cats around a particular kind of goal.
Okay.
On my mother's side, um, this is now a year and a half ago. I don't remember exactly the origin story, but essentially, my sister Crystal was like, "Isn't it crazy how much when we get together and we talk about stuff, we don't talk about money? Like, we don't talk about stuff that actually like feels very material. And all of us have bought houses. They all have kids. They have
Hmm.
kids that have kids. Many of us have gone to college. Several of us are entrepreneurs. We all work in different industries. We're all creative, but we don't really talk about wealth building or things that are really like, again, thinking like, what are we, how are we setting ourselves up so that in a generation or two we'll be better, our
I want
our,
to hear
our
a
family
little
will be
bit
better.
about, so tell us a little bit more about the before until we go to the after. So before you started having the money conversations, what did you talk about?
I would say like, I don't know what your family talks about, Lina, when they get together, but when my family gets together, we tell old stories. We tell the same
Hmm.
stories. We poke fun at each other. Um, we talk about each other. We talk about life. Like I don't know what we. It's not a lot, you know. It's like kind of contained, and it depends on how big the group is. I think when it's
Yeah.
one or two, you can go a lot deeper, get more personal, get more real. My family's very large, so when you have a large group, you kind of just fall into the same roles, and we're loud. We all talk over each other, so it's cacophonous. It's raucous. It's a lot of poking fun. Um, and then on a one to one or two to one basis, you might talk about how you're struggling at work or how you falling behind or how you want to buy a house, but you know, your credit's jacked up or like
Mm,
you, or like your car, you know, there have been repossessions. Like, you know, my family's a normal people. People have been through all kinds of things. And so I, I think that what my sister was inspired by, she's a single mom of four. And she went from getting evicted, having her car repossessed. She's an entrepreneur as well. She's led her own design business. She went from this sort of bottom situation to buying a house. And in order to do that, she willed herself. This is like a lot when it's like, oh yeah, our mother is our mother. Like
yeah.
my sister Crystal has read every personal finance book. She's done every exercise in all of those books. She's done the net worth stuff. She's thought about her personal, you know, ideologies associated with money. She like all of the stuff. If you read any of those finance books, they kind of take you on an arc that's like money actually isn't about money. It's very personal.
Yeah.
It's very like almost spiritual. Like our relationship to money has a lot to do with where we come from and the things we were taught about money. So she's like gone through this journey and felt very moved to like want to share that and want to harness the wisdom amongst us to share that with each other so that we can move as maybe a united front towards wealth building and wealth generation. Again, that sort
Yeah.
of entrepreneurial orientation that we were raised with is showing its head. So I would say like a lot of what brought her to that want to do that uh, uh, was a little bit much more aspirational. I think for
Yeah.
me as the baby, as the one who's still sort of forging relationships with my siblings, because not only am I much younger than them, you know, it's 5 years apart, then 6, and then 11, and then 16.
Wow. Okay.
Um, I have nieces and nephews who are very close to me in age. I've been gone. So I've been away from where they all live for 20 years and they know me, but they don't. You know, they know what I show them and talk about, and then we talk about stuff, but it's not like a consistent, very rooted relationship. So for me, it was an opportunity to talk about different stuff, to go deeper, to learn more about them in ways that it might not organically come up when we get together. And so that's really what brought us together. And then we had these structured meetings. I'll talk to Crystal before. We talk about an agenda. We talk about activities. She would facilitate, and
How
the
often does this
real
happen?
reason how often the first Sunday of every month.
Okay.
And I think her pitch to the group was accountability is really important, and this is a place where we want to forge some accountability around money. And we all come from the same family. So we all probably have similar ideas about money. And we all have had jobs. We've all had cars. We've all had houses. Folks have gotten experience getting fired, laid off. Folks have experienced everything. Why not create a brain trust here that we can learn with each other, learn from each other so that we can all sort of be better and step up, step forward into the future. And so we've been meeting for a year and a half. We have a
Mm-hmm.
name. We call it Ferguson. What is it? Family. It's F2A2. Family Financial Accountability Alliance.
Okay.
F2A2. So
How
she's a
how
designer
many
and
people and
brander.
members? Say it again.
Um, so it's all of my siblings. So there's five of us. Our mother, and then several of my siblings' children join consistently. I would say five, six, 7, 8, 9. So anywhere between like 6 and 10 people every time we meet. And we've talked about net worth. We've all done a net worth calculator. I did a presentation one month on credit cards as a sort of tool in your financial toolbox, because a lot of people, the way we think about credit cards is very flat. It's just like, oh no, I don't want it, or it I use it for everything too much.
Yeah.
And my sister knows I've used credit card. I be using balance transfers. I be doing a whole bunch of stuff with credit cards. And so I did a presentation on credit cards. My brother's been in the car business his whole career. He talked about auto finance, how it works. He showed us the back end, like the car dealerships dashboard of how they evaluate cars, how they sell them, how they run your credit to give you different financing options. We've talked about debt payoff strategies. We've talked about insurance because my mother sells life insurance. We talked about entrepreneurship because one of my sisters has been a hairstylist. She's owned her own hair salon. She's been doing hair for 30 years. We've talked about a lot of that's just like the tip of the iceberg. We set goals every month. And so we have this little padlet that we put, somebody will say, I want to put $500 in my savings, or la la la. This year we stepped that up a notch with bingo cards. So we all have a bingo card that has all these little goals. So every month when we check in, we say, is anybody any progress on anything on your bingo card? And your bingo card is not just finance stuff. Like I have I have do 3 pull-ups on my bingo card or
Hmm.
like read 5 fiction books.
Yeah.
I also have consolidate all my prior 401ks into an IRA
Yeah.
because I got a bunch of them hanging out there from old jobs. So it's become a place where we're reflecting back on our goals, what's getting in the way. We're we're talking about like where we struggle, all kinds of stuff. And it's been so fruitful. We recently, a couple of my siblings decided to do a podcast. So now we're doing like a sibling podcast that isn't actually about money per se.
Whoa.
So my greatest uh, joy in this is that it's like strengthening the connective tissue we have.
So, having structured conversations around finances on a regular basis with your family, um, it certainly changed what you all talk about when you get together. It's at least in those conversations, and I was going to ask, does that have a spillover effect into when you connect outside of the FFAA conversations?
It does.
Yeah.
We also assigned each other accountability partners. So like I have my niece as one. My mother has like one of her granddaughters as one. So it keeps you aware of like who you're talking to, who you're not talking to. It gives me extra oomph to be like, hey niece, what's going on? How you doing? You a new mom? How's it going? How's your son? Just it's so easy to get busy. We're all so busy. And why are we busy? Usually trying to make money and survive in
Mm.
this 21st
Wow.
century economy. And so to me,
Wow.
like it has helped me, a person who's been desiring community, desiring to feel more grounded, thinking and meditating a lot on what community and accountability looks like. Those are sort of my words for the year. Um, I, One of the things I'm learning about community is like you, if you don't honor the tether you have to people or places or things, you'll just be an atom out there in the universe. And I've been an atom. I've had a great time being like just floating around, little
Hmm.
electron or whatever.
Hmm.
But there comes a time, I think, when you need to be in community. And so this is just to me a proxy for having a reason to be tapped into what's going on in other people's lives and not sort of falling prey to like, I'm just so busy. I got a lot going on. I forgot.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, oh yeah, your birthday. How you doing? It's like that very cursory.
Yeah.
It allows me to escape that cursory relationship
Yeah.
dynamic that you have with people that you don't talk to very often. So Lionel, let's say we're friends. We only talk twice a year. We're only going to talk about a certain set of things because
Hmm.
we're not tapped into what's going on a more consistent. It doesn't have to be day to day basis, but it's allowing us to sort of go deeper faster. So when I'm in the room with one of my sisters, my oldest sister, I don't we don't have to go through the how you
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to know how you doing, but it's like
Yeah.
I remember you said you wanted to get that certification because you were thinking about building that
Right.
business.
It,
How is
it's
that
not
going?
just it's not just how you're doing, but implicit in that in the way you structured is, but how are you really doing?
How you really doing? Like, what's
Yeah.
up with that thing you said? It allows
Yes.
you to follow up and actually hold people accountable. And I don't mean accountable like it beat you over the head. You didn't do something you were supposed to. It's like, remember that thing you said you wanted to do? How
Yes.
remember you told me you wanted to travel more
Yeah.
and we talked about time and money. How
Yeah.
are you doing on that? Oh, well, I haven't gotten to,
Yeah. Yeah.
or you know what? I have been putting a little bit of money aside. Oh, that's so exciting. How does that feel for you? Like it just, I think being in relationship with people in a deeper way allows you to just, I know this maybe
So
sounds a little woo woo,
I
but
get
it
it
just allows you to
implicitly.
like be more connective. And that, if I could summarize all of this and relate it back to money, American culture, it is so consumer driven and it is so much about money, but it's like taboo to talk about money. It
Yeah.
You can walk into somebody's house who's like, I just bought my house. You could go on Zillow or Redfin and see how much they bought it for. But if you ask them, it's
Mm-hmm.
weird. It's
Yes.
taboo.
Yes.
That's crazy. And to me, it's like, why? It is the thing that we are all out here stressed about. Oh, one of the we stress about a lot of things, right? But it's like money is the means to which we have access to life meaning,
Yes.
like us being able to survive in order to access joy, and yet we can't talk about it. And I find that when you're in relationship with people, you can talk about things that are a little more taboo, money being one of them. And so I will just ask people, oh, how much you make? Like, or like, oh, how do you, do you have a lot of bank accounts? Like, I'll just ask people. I don't care. I don't
Tiff,
care.
Tiffany Ferguson, you are the avatar of this podcast. You are the embodiment of why this podcast exists. You are saying these things, and I'm going because after every one of these interviews, I attempt to write an intro that captures what the person is about and why they're worth listening to, and you just beat the. I can't do it any better than you just do it. But so thank you for that. Before we wrap up, some people listening to this conversation will be utterly petrified at the idea of having these conversations with their families. So they won't do it. But some are going to go, you know what? I need that in my life. We need to replicate that. What's your advice to people who want to have these structured, smart, compassionate conversations around finances with their family?
My first like piece of advice is start one on one.
Okay.
Um, and you can start with the person you're closest to. Hey, I have this idea. What do you think? And here's why. Here's what I care about. Like, just talk it over with somebody. That's the first piece of advice. And the point, though, the reason you do that is not to get validation, not to get a yay, or because you may not, but it's really to begin practice articulating like why this feels important and doing it where it has little stakes. Because family can be scary. I
Yes.
love my like it's sometimes it might be easier to talk to you, Lionel, about a new idea I have about something. It will feel completely different talking to a family member
Mm-hmm.
for some reason. I don't know. Maybe others might have other experiences, but I think beginning to plant seeds, talk about what your ideas are, and ask people if they desire something like that. And I think the one thing I didn't mention is this. I, I, I'm just the way it probably sounds. How I'm describing this podcast is as if everybody in my family got on and was like, "Yeah, let's do this. This makes sense. It all makes no like." We had to kind of find a rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
We had to be. This is what I do for work. When you talk about stakeholder engagement, stakeholder buy-in, you have to give people time to come to. You have to give them time to buy in. You have to give them time to feel it out and see if it's for them. One of my siblings don't come.
Yeah.
She be saying she gonna come, but then she don't come. That's okay. So
Yeah.
it won't be like I'm getting ahead of myself in terms of what it's like in the group, but I'm saying this to say, um, If it's something you feel strongly about, spend some time meditating on it, journaling on it, talking it over with friends and other people in your family one on one to get a lot of clarity around why. Because your why is going to be the thing that carries you through those times when people don't show up, when people
Yeah.
are too busy, when they don't have time, when they seem disengaged. So, one is like get clear on your why, because that'll be the thing that sustains you. The second is somebody's got to own it. So,
Yep.
if you're one of those people that's like, well, I can't do it by myself and I can't be, then you can't do it. Like
Yeah.
my sister Crystal, she holds it down. I don't know how. She's a super person. She does a bunch of other stuff too. Like she's one of those people that like signs up to fundraise for the PTA and does like she just has a lot of I don't know how where she gets all this energy because I'd be tired after my one little job. But it's a long run commitment. And that's why you have to be really clear about your why. And also if nobody else is showing up to do the work, you have to kind of anticipate how you're going to respond to that and what you're going to do in the face of that.
Yeah.
And if you're, it, it helps to think of yourself like an organizer or as a rallier. Like you also
Mm-hmm.
have to understand what people want. And sometimes people aren't going to know what they want. Like this is very new for a family to do. And in
Yeah.
your families, I don't know. Not everybody in my family sits on Zoom all day and does
Yeah.
like remote work. Not everybody in my family has been to a facilitated conversation. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like this is a different didactic. It's like a different modality of an experience. So you also want to think about how to design time and space together to hold people in that space. So you might
Yes.
think about getting in person, like with the my father's side of the family. We did a family reunion. That was how we kicked off those meetings around those virtual meetings that we were having monthly. We got together in person and we
Yeah.
walked on the land and he told the story and he showed the family tree and that was how he engendered buy-in. So you got to think about like what kind of stuff does your family like to sit around and do? What do y'all typically talk about? What types of experience do you know people can bring? Because sometimes I may say like Lionel, you should come to these. And you're like, oh, no, that's not for me. But Lionel, you've had multiple jobs. You've had um, different businesses. You learn X, Y, and Z. You taught yourself. You have so much to offer. Like, you kind of got to build people up too, because people have all kinds of feelings about money. Like, there's a lot of shame, guilt. Like, there's a lot of stuff. So you just have to remember, like, you're dealing with an issue and you're dealing with people who relate to the issue and building that buy-in along the way and remembering um, that you have to give people you have to kind of teach people how to engage in the space. If
Yeah.
you want to do something very formal, you don't have to do something that's formal as what we do. That's just our sort of proclivity. Like we're like worker people, we are
Yeah.
hustle people in my siblings. um Maybe y'all are like cookout people, which we are too.
Yeah.
Maybe you might like just be like, all right, for 20 minutes of this 4th of July cookout, we all gonna go around in a circle and talk about like the biggest lesson we learned from money that we want to pass on to our kids.
So part of what I'm taking from this is you obviously have a gift and an inclination for this type of is a combination of feelings and process work.
Hmm.
You can structure a process that really meets people where they are and helps them get to where they want to go. You can do that for a group. So you're great at this, but you don't necessarily have to be born the way Tiffany was to
No.
make this happen. There's a way you can tailor it for what you and the folks you care about want to get done.
Yeah. You have to think about the same things. You have to think
Yeah.
about like, why would people show up? Why would they
Yeah.
share? What type of environment is conducive to them sharing? Okay, start there. Have a couple one-on-one conversations. Plant some seeds. Talk about like what it would look like, what it would take. What you think about that? Is there anything you would want to talk about? Is there anything you need help with? Anything you're struggling with? Okay, how would this feel? Would this be crazy? Like, it is about fundamentally being in relationship to people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you know how to do that, or if you are not sure, then try
Yeah.
and be willing to like discover new things. There are things that about your parents or your siblings or your cousins or your aunts, depends on how big. I always say start small. Um, there are things you can learn about them that you will never ever have known if you don't give yourself the opportunity to just ask new questions that you wouldn't
Yeah.
typically ask. So I
Yeah.
would say think about it as building relationships and as a means to strengthen your relationships towards some goal that everybody can kind of get behind. That's you don't need to be an expert
Yeah.
facilitator
Yeah.
to start there.
We covered so much. You're so generous with your experience and your history. Is there anything I should have asked you that I did not?
I don't know. I mean, I like have a lot to say about money in general, like college loans, and I bought a house. I'm a landlord. Like I think the you didn't ask this, but I want to say it.
Okay.
I know when I talk, it sounds like I have all my shit together. People have been telling me that my whole life. You just sound like you got it together. I don't. Like like I don't. And I want people to understand that like you can have the tools and still struggle.
Yeah.
You can have the know-how. You can be raised by somebody like my mother and still be figuring it out in the world. And so we're all figuring it out in the world. Um and you have to be clear and confident in the choices you're making at every step of the way. So the thing I will leave you on is like a person who knows about money like I do, I transitioned jobs and took a very huge pay cut.
Mm.
And I knew it was going to impact me. And I had done the calculations, but I did it anyway. It was like a leap of faith. Right? Like, and now I'm working through like what that means. I'm processing still. I'm running numbers. I'm like, oh Lord, like I shouldn't have did that. So I'm saying it to say like this is not a you no one's perfect. You don't understand this stuff and then like always have it together. Like so I'm sometimes I think like people hear this something like, oh, I could never budget. Oh no, I don't ever run the or like I could never do that. And I'm hopeful that someone will hear this and say, I may not have it, I may not feel super confident, but I'm willing to take a step forward towards what feels meaningful to me
Hmm.
and figure out how to plan accordingly. And even if your plans don't go as you imagine they will,
Yes.
like keep going. Or
Yes.
sometimes your plans go perfectly and then the next plan doesn't. So it's
So
really about
keep
like
going. And if you stay in community,
yes,
you get the encouragement, you get the support, you get the feedback you need to course correct.
that's right.
Yeah. So you were talking there. I was, see, I just hit my
Uh-oh,
mic.
you punching the mic.
Because you got me so revved. I was like, oh my goodness! And if not for the fact that I need to protect the audio quality, I would have stood up and clapped. Tiffany, you're fantastic, and you're real slick because you use this my fledgling podcast to soft launch your podcast, which is exactly what you should do. I love
Nobody
it.
stop it.
I
Nobody
had
I didn't even say the name of it.
what is the name of it?
I think it's still TPD.
Okay. All right. So what we'll do is you and I will stay in touch, and once you have the particulars for your podcast, where people can find it, the name, how they can access it, I'll no, I mean this seriously. I will make that. I'll say that on the air of one of my podcasts. I'll direct people to yours because yeah, you're a real gift. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Lionel, for having me.
Music for Money Honestly is courtesy of bassist, composer, and bandleader Chris Funn. It's his song Wish from the album Corner Store.